Hello, a warm welcome to our series, The Inner Adventure. My name is Lutz Otto. I am a professional walking and wilderness guide, as well as business consultant. My co-host is Dr. Ken Jennings, a consulting psychologist in private practice. Both Ken and I have repeatedly seen how time in nature can positively enrich and have a profound impact on our lives. The combination of the sensory stimulation, the energy of wilderness, and the use of our own spiritual, mental, and physical energy whilst we are out there, especially if we're out of our comfort zones or normal environment, seems to bring our lives into just that much sharper focus. We can, if we choose to, learn a lot about ourselves whilst we're out in wilderness. What started as an adventure, in fact, often starts as an experience, results in an introspection as to where we are in our lives. It can catalyze change. It sees us seeing deeper value in human relationships. And it creates a set of skills that we can use back in our day-to-day lives. Whilst we are out there, we learn that we form an intricate part of the web of life, that everything is connected. In fact, that we are a part of nature rather than a part of nature. Each time we go out, nature just gives us that much more than we expected. It was really based on these commonalities that Ken and I decided to come together to explore, exactly as his introduction, what happens when nature, ecology, and the human psychology meet. I'd like to hand you over to Ken, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about himself.
Well, thank you, Lutz. In thinking about how I should share my story about who I am with those who are watching, or just to share who I am, I thought it would be important for me just to link to the 4 loves that I have. And through the story of these loves, I think it could share a little bit about who I am as a person. I mean, I remember as a young boy, my greatest love was sport and outdoors and physical activity. I've got a brother, and both of us had this intense love for sport, culminating actually where he played provincial cricket and eventually played for South Africa, and I played provincial cricket and hockey. But most of our young lives, if I think back, was outdoors, exercising, using the body in activity and that. And this love for sport has continued over time. It hasn't stopped. It's actually, I think, even brought more joy in as I age, because I'm doing yoga at the moment, and I do Tai Chi and enjoy long walks in the beautiful forests here in southern Germany. I remember when I chose my first formal career, which was in education, I actually chose it based on my love for sport. Because at that stage, I actually wanted a career where I could have some free time as well. So choosing education, I had the afternoons free to practice and to exercise and so on. In my degree leading up to my teaching career, I did a degree with 3 majors. I did a major in psychology, I did a major in geography, funny enough, and also in psychology and mathematics. So those were the 3 majors. And I remember in my teaching of mathematics, I started to notice the invisible world that links people. The interactions between the children in the class. And also after teaching a particular topic, thinking that everybody would come out with 100%, but yet many of the students failing. And I got to question, why was it, or what was happening in the classroom? It was more than mathematics. And my love for psychology started to grow more and more. Eventually with me deciding to move out of education and then embarking on this route to becoming a psychologist in private practice. And in my training as a psychologist, we covered a field, and our philosophy was systemic and ecosystemic psychology. And fundamentally, ideas around nature and understanding the connections that exist in nature formed the vast foundation of the psychological model. And I'll never forget going to a lecture by an American psychologist, Dick Oswald, who spoke about the mecologic world and the ecologic world. And the mecologic world was a world of machines, where there was certainty and there was objectivity. And the ecologic world was the world of uncertainty, of diversity, of subjectivity. And when we look at our world, sometimes we think of that life exists in straight lines, but it actually, it doesn't. When you look at nature, it exists in waves. It exists in circularity. It exists in spirals. So this eco-psychology or this ecosystemic philosophy guided my practice from those early days, and still does. In 1990, the world of sport and psychology for me converged. And utilizing this philosophy of eco-psychology, I consulted with a top provincial rugby team. And utilizing those themes or philosophies, this team transformed itself, and against all odds, won the Currie Cup rugby final. I think in one of our next series, I'll go into more depth in that. But what struck me was the significance and the power and the transformational nature of systemic and ecosystemic thinking, and also practicing in terms of my psychology. In the early stages of my family, with my two boys and my wife, we were all lovers of nature. And my third love, which was sitting anyway in terms of psychology, was nature and ecology. And I never forget, and it's so strong in my mind as I'm talking to you, the wonderful times that we as a family, my wife, my two boys, sitting in the wilderness, sitting in nature, in our little tents with a fire going, both my boys starting the fire, as we know, the excitement of that, and cooking over the fire, and back to almost grounding ourselves into this vast energy of nature that was surrounding us. And my boys, even to this day, speak about, moments when we were sitting around as a family talking about just our lives, talking about the bird we might have heard, or the grunt we might have heard in the bush, and so on. So that third love of ecology again started to interweave itself into my life as I moved on. After 30 years of my practice, so we're talking four odd years ago, I moved to Germany, where I'm sitting here now as I'm talking to you. And in Germany, which I think in a later series we'll talk more about the complexity of that move. But in Germany, my fourth love has unfolded, and that's my love of photography. And I spend a lot of time walking in the forests, walking near rivers and waterfalls and in the mountains, embedded in this beautiful nature-taking photography of the landscape. And in this in this photography process, the worlds of outdoor sport activity, the worlds of actually psychology and ecology around the photography has all integrated into this oneness for me. And I've learned so much through the sort of photography process and the psychology process as I enter the landscape. And as I enter the landscape, that we enter this landscape with a certain mindset. And again, I think in a later series, we'll talk about what sort of mindset should we have as we enter into a wilderness place, or into a place of nature, where in a way we're a guest. We are privileged to become a guest into nature, into this context of the landscape, where at this moment in time, as I put my camera on my tripod, I can reveal through the camera what I see and what I experience in this beautiful landscape. So I'm hoping that this little story about my 4 loves of sport and outdoors and activity, my psychology, which is fundamentally my practice and my business, the ecology, nature, wilderness, and then my photography. And as time has gone on in my life, the integration of these 4 loves. So that's a little bit about myself. Lutz, maybe you could share a little bit about yourself.
Ken, as you were talking, I reflected on how we met many years ago, 20 years ago, at least, I think. And the commonality between the two of us was nature at that point. We were both very interested in performance psychology. I came to you in the desperate need of mentorship to progress in my life. And immediately we found that commonality of nature, and that nature commonality just made our interaction just that much more powerful. I have a lifelong passion for adventure, the bush, mountains, wilderness, ecology, and conservation. I was fortunate to grow up in a then undeveloped area. We had sand roads and very few roads, and lots of freedom to run around in nature. In fact, my mom and then father were very trusting of us to just disappear into these big wide spaces. My mom would probably start worrying when we hadn't arrived back home and there'd been an hour of darkness. I completed my first backpack trail in 1984, and by 1990 had walked most of South Africa's hut-to-hut backpack trails. I felt something was missing, and I wanted it wilder, and I'd been reading all these books that had influenced my life, books by Dr. Ian Player, Clive Walker, and big mountain climbers that had explored these wild places. I started leading wilderness backpacking trails in 1989. I remember the huge impact it had on my life in terms of my confidence. The shift from hut to hut to wilderness, where you're deciding your own path, your own destination, you're carrying everything on your back, is huge. And this it just exploded something within me. That led to mountaineering, climbing, overlanding trips through Southern Africa, and walking safaris, which are a huge part of my life. I've traveled extensively through Southern Africa, a lot of Europe and parts of Australasia. I spent a stint in Europe, and through that stint, I climbed a lot in the Alps. I mountaineered a lot in the Alps, and I spent a lot of time in the UK mountains. Through that entire time, I would visit South Africa and I'd visit the bush. But what I noticed was that I was missing this place. I was missing the bush, and it is what brought me back to South Africa. When I returned here, it became a large part of my focus. In terms of the business space, I'm a business school graduate with extensive local and international experience in executive leadership roles. This has included exposure to different sectors and also to to different environments, countries, which had me thinking a lot around the human psychology, in fact, specifically performance psychology, which draws a correlation to Ken's work. In roughly 2003, I discovered the benefits of time in nature with teams. We were involved in a major turnaround, and we needed to do things differently. We took our then team into the bush, and we worked with them there. And what struck me was a real difference between their receptiveness and their engagement compared to us running a conference of this type in a fancy hotel in the city. It was something really different. That difference led to many conferences in the bush. In fact, we tested it and we saw again this difference. But more importantly, this difference saw me start researching why time in nature impacts us so differently. Leading teams, both in the business space and wilderness, has afforded me a much deeper understanding of myself, as well as the complexities needed to achieve success. And that is whatever that definition of success means. I still occasionally consult in the business space with select aligned clients. Today, I'm a walking and adventure safari specialist. In 2001, to tell you a little, or bring a little bit of the story as to how I landed here, I was sitting in Clapham in London, and I journaled the dream of today building Spirited Adventures in consulting. I started running Spirited Adventures in 2005 in parallel to my then corporate life. I ran walking safaris predominantly for people that I knew or people that they knew. It was not a business that was driven by growth targets. It was a business that was driven by my passion for walking and ecology. Then in 2009, I reached a significant turning point in my life. I had a couple of them. One was my father dying at the age of 12. In 2009, I nearly died of cerebral malaria, largely because of the time that I'd been spending in the bush and not taking prophylaxis. I fell very ill and in fact was on life support for 6 days where I was in a coma. When I came out of that, I found that I was questioning life and seeing life differently. It took me a long time to recover. I had a 6-month recovery based on the severity of my crisis. I started questioning more than ever the meaning of life in the bigger picture. I've always had a deep interest in positive psychology and spirituality. But this event, coupled with my father's death at the age of 12 years old, triggered something. And I started really looking for meaning different to just growth in the corporate space, meaning different to just climbing the corporate ladder. In 2015, I was presented an opportunity to leave the corporate environment on a really successful and positive note. I grabbed that opportunity, and it allowed me the freedom to start building Spirited Adventures on a commercial level, very different to the way I'd done it before. Since then, I've attained the highest field and walking guide qualifications that you can. I have a qualification known as the Specialist Knowledge and Skills Dangerous Game qualification that only a handful of people in the world hold. In 2015, I was also awarded the Order of the Bateleur for my conservation work, which includes anti-poaching and habitat management. What was interesting about the conservation work, it was also run in parallel to this life I ran before and was done as a volunteer. So a genuine commitment to the space, Ken. I've written numerous articles on the subject and blogged a lot of these articles. I think when I'm on safari with my clients, I try to spend as little possible time in game viewers. And the reason for this is I like to take people from the observation platform of a vehicle to immersing themselves into what we are part of. I don't see us as being part of a guest in the system. I differently see us as being part of the system. We just as humans have often forgotten how to respectfully coexist in the ecological space. So in terms of my walking experiences, my passion still sits with the multi-day backpacking safaris. I like testing the boundaries. I like testing the human body in these incredible spaces. The more time I spend in wilderness, the more time I spend in the mountains or the bush, the more I have become with the impact of these the more time I've spent thinking about the impact of this time on the human psychology. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that time in wild places changes who we are and influences who we are. Outside of the buff, I duck and dive busy places. I don't like busy shopping malls. I don't like busy restaurant areas. Our holidays are spent in wild places. We are essentially a small and private family and a close-knit family that spend our time with a very small group of people that we respect and admire. I think, though, that's enough about us. I thought it would be useful to share a little bit about Ken and my vision for the series. The Inner Adventure for us is a series of discussions where we will share our thoughts, learnings, and stories, where we will explore repetitive themes that we have come across as a result of our time in wild places, either with our clients or within ourselves. We wish to share a rich integration of perspectives and hopefully work through a set of topics that include the dance between success and failure. What constitutes failure in nature? What attitude or frame of mind should we have when we embark on our adventures in nature? Should we prepare? Should we arrive with a set of expectations? How adventurous experiences in wilderness result in or teach us about resilience and grit, and the components of resilience and grit, self-belief, hope, and faith. We're going to explore a little bit about how this time engages us in different levels of, or inspires different levels of self-trust and teaches us a lot about leadership. And as Ken mentioned earlier, dealing with certainty and uncertainty. We're going to talk about how resolve, creativity, and problem solving improve through spending time in these wild and beautiful places. We'll talk a little bit about our intuition and trusting our intuition. Also differentiating between overconfidence, which can happen quickly, or fear, which can happen equally quickly. I'm going to hand you over to Ken, and he's going to talk a little bit about how we would like to see this series flow.
Well, I think, while Lutz has identified specific topics, for me, the conversation that Lutz and myself are going to be embarking on will be, in a way, our internal or inner adventure as well. Because although we've got an idea about specifics, I think the beauty of nature, the beauty of conversation, is we never quite know how the process is going to unfold. We're never certain about that this is what we're going to achieve. So, and I'm totally okay with that, and I know Lutz is okay with that. So I want to just add that the structure or the certainty about what we're going to cover, I don't think you as a viewer should hold us to that. I want us to have a little bit more freedom. I see Lutz smiling as I'm talking, because for me, and I think Lutz agrees with this, is that this is our inner adventure. Lutz's mine, Lutz's and mine, in that we ourselves are going to be exploring some of our inner experiences that maybe we haven't sat down carefully enough to unpick and unravel and explore in more depth. So this is an opportunity for us, and this is what excites me about our time together, Lutz. This time, this space for you and me to sit and to converse about our deep shared love, our love of nature, of wilderness, of ecology, which you so rightly said is that we are a part of this. And you rightly also said we're not a guest. we are very much embedded in this fabric. And so I'd like to add that as the vision, or as a little bit about what you said, is the fluidness of this process. Lutz, you were going to share, I think, or you want to just talk a little bit about the scientific results that you, could you go into that now?
Yeah, absolutely, Ken. I'm going to share screen, and we're going to just share a couple of the research findings from deep papers that we've explored over the years. So if you bear with me, I'm going to pop up a slide, and the slide is going to show first psychological benefit and then second physiological benefit. So I'm going to put this into slide mode, and hopefully it's going to reveal a little bit better. So I mentioned earlier, Ken, that I started exploring why this difference happens when or these positive changes unfold when we're in nature. My natural thinking pattern is one that's a little bit more analytical and a little bit more logical. And I needed to understand why this difference exists. I remember us talking about it years ago, and now that we're actually embarking on this journey of discussing it publicly, as I look at the research, it just solidifies more and more. I think one piece that really jumps out is that the time in nature changes our perspectives, or it evolves our thinking. There's a fantastic study that's undertaken, I think it was in 2015 by Stray and Ackley, that shows performance increases of 50% after 56 people, and all of them were postgrads, had spent 4 to 6 days in wilderness disconnected from technology. I mean, that's just insane. How do you get a 50% increase in creative problem solving over 4 to 6 days? So it was measured prior and afterwards. Most of the research shows a deeper personal understanding, while it's establishing a sense that we are part of something bigger, which talks to the ecology. It improves our ability to connect to others, as well as our empathetic understanding. It creates deeper team alignment and involvement, or equally so, and I think this is quite important in the context of performance, it unravels the cracks. So it reveals cracks that might have been there. It allows for the development of new or transferable skills, which include emotional skills, not just often spoken about leadership skills. There's another study, which is a Stanford study that was run with two sample groups, one in an urban environment and one in a California nature environment, where the two groups walked for 50 minutes each, and two things were measured: affect and cognition. So affect is stress, rumination, fear, gratification, jealousy, etc. And all of those decreased that much more when the person was in a natural environment. Cognition, which is attention, reasoning, memory, performance, memory working span, learning receptiveness, learning stickiness, all improved when they were in a nature environment. So the benefits were seen walking in an urban environment for 50 minutes, but nowhere as much as in nature. The second slide references our physiological benefit. And it goes without saying, I mean, there's no science necessary that if you're going to go for a walk, there's going to be some benefit to your fitness. This fitness, though, can vary. I mean, if you're climbing a big mountain, the exertion level is going to be that much more, and the benefit's going to be that much more. In Japan, across 35 Japanese forests, 420 people, or 420 subjects were put through a process of walking in these environments. What they saw was a decrease in cortisol. We know the impacts of long-term cortisol absorption is bad for our bodies, a decrease in sympathetic nervous activity, and a decrease in heart rate. Contrastingly, there were increases in parasympathetic nerve activity of up to 55% after 2 days in these environments, an increase in natural killer cells, which fight things like cancers, of 56% on day number 2. And what what I think really stood out in this study, that it was maintained for 1 month after return to cities. There's so much work around this, Ken. I have, over the years, collected literally files and files of papers that have now obviously shifted to being served or filed on my computer. But yeah, there's just so much evidence of time in nature. I was wondering, Ken, is there anything that really stands out there as important to you?
Well, Lutz, as I was just looking at those research findings, I mean, I connected to every one of those. And I think every one of those in themselves we can delve into deeper. I mean, but I think what was for me is just the breadth of the benefits that one does have when you spend time in nature. The other feeling that I had was that none of this surprised me. It was this, being in nature. I mean, I benefit this way, and I've noticed also, I've taken a couple of my clients, top sportsmen, into nature where we spent time just being in nature. The impact. So nothing surprised me there, Lutz, and I connected to everything. I think if I could make just a couple of comments, I think what's happened is we've become disconnected.
Yeah.
We've become disconnected from basically the deeper fabric about who we are as human beings and the relationship we have with nature. But I think in the process of the disconnection, we've disconnected from ourselves, we've disconnected from others, and we've disconnected from nature. And I think going into nature re-establishes a connection or a reconnection. And we then find ourselves, we come back to ourselves. And I think that's a main benefit. I'd like to just also share with you one photograph that I took. I'm going to do that now. Let me just get this sharing. Here we go. So can you see that?
Yeah.
I want to share that in full. I mean, this picture tells for me such a powerful story, and it links to one of the findings you had, is that in nature we realize two things. We realize how, in a way, how small we are, how insignificant we are in the greater scheme of nature and of life. And we experience a energy that is far bigger than we are. So we experience this smallness, and in the smallness, we dissolve our ego, we dissolve our self in a way, and we reconnect with this energy that's around us. And this is a very, very powerful process in energy that exists in nature. I want to show you a second photograph, which also highlights the sense of vastness, the sense of this energy that is far bigger than self, far bigger than the individual. And when we feel that we connect to this and we feel the greater energy that surrounds us, it humbles us. There's a sense of feeling our vulnerability as well. And those processes of the vulnerability, the breaking of that exterior block or defensiveness we have as a human being just crumbles as we spend time in nature. And I think, Lutz, you made an interesting point about what is it that you're doing in nature and how long do you spend in nature? Are you trekking for a month having to look after yourself, get your own food, your own water, which is very extreme? Or are you spending it more in a luxury type of environment in nature? I mean, so they're different. I think they're different ways we spend in wilderness and nature, and there's also that length and time which we need to consider. So I just thought I'd like to share that with you, and we can, and I think I've said enough on that.
Ken, I look at that picture and I think immediately our eyes catch the elephant, but amongst there we've got marabou stork, we had hippos, we've got this complexity, and in fact, if we look at it closely, chaos.
Lutz, I'm struggling. I know you're talking now, but I'm struggling to finish this stop. I don't know how to stop this thing.
So you strike share screen again, and
okay,
stop sharing. There we go. Perfect.
Now I don't. Has that destroyed our process?
I don't think so.
Good. So you were saying?
You can see this. Your eye immediately catches the elephant moving across, but as you start looking at it, you see some marabou stork, you see some hippo, you see some cattle egrets, and as you look at that deeper, you see actually there's just not wildlife here. There's deep bush, and there's this flow of water. There's this difference of color. In fact, what we're seeing is complexity, chaos, yet we feel calmness and serene when we look at it. And I think that's some of the power of nature. If I think of our environment that we exist in at the moment, we exist in a complex and chaotic environment, but our human reaction is very different to looking at that picture. Ken, while you were talking, I was thinking about what stood out for me with those slides, and that I think the health benefits are obvious. To me, what strikes me more than anything else is the introspection and the connectedness. And I believe, exactly as you said, that vulnerability that we feel out there, that we're part of something much bigger, and in some ways our weaknesses, our strengths as well are exposed. But the vulnerability that we feel out there results in a deep, deep introspection. And I guess because I'm leading the more extreme of the walking safaris relatively often, the backpacking safaris, I'm exposed to that mindset or that change in mindset relatively often. A lot of these people that come on our safaris are very successful. They've done really well in life. They've achieved a lot, and on initial arrival look very confident, very happy, and rightfully so. What happens into the safari over 2 or 3 days is it's this introspection starts, this deep introspection and reflection on where am I in life? Where would I like to go? In fact, that's exactly what happened to me. I mean, I went through that process myself, and perhaps that's why it resonates. So what stands out more than anything else is to me the introspection that results from the vulnerability that we feel when we're out there, and how positive that introspection is. Ken, I can talk for hours on this, and our time is coming to close. But lots of time to explore this in our series still. I wanted to know if you had any closing thought.
No, Lutz, I have the same feeling. We could continue talking about this, because there is so much to this. There's so much to. I often talk about the invisible fabric that also exists, the processes that are occurring between ourselves and nature that we can't really see. And you talk about this sort of self that dissolves. Somebody coming onto your safari walk, being confident and being successful, and so on. And nature doesn't really care about that. You know, it doesn't care about status. It doesn't care about whether you've achieved whatever you've achieved. It wants you to interact with it in a human way, you know, in a way that's open and respectful. So Lutz, I think I'm looking forward to our further conversations on more specific topics, where we delve into some of these in a little bit more depth. I think today we've created a broad platform of sharing our intention and our vision with the viewer. So yes, I'm fine. I've got nothing more to add.
I feel that we've just touched the tip of the iceberg, and I'm almost sad to hit stop record, because I know that Ken and I have got involved in conversations, and eventually we've got to say, look, Ken's got to consult with someone else, or I've got to go. In this instance, we've got to stop the recording. So thank you very much for listening to our first of the Inner Adventure. I hope that it had you thinking a little bit, and that there's enough thinking going on that you join us on our further explorations. Don't forget to add any comments, likes, thoughts in the blocks below. And the next time we meet, we're going to jump straight into it. Our topic is going to be an exploration of success and failure in nature. Until next time, we're really thankful for you joining us, and look after yourselves and shine your light brightly. Ciao.